us this morning for our webinar on customer service effects on social media. My name's Kristy. I'm a presenter and an advisor for Business Station as part of the Digital Solutions program. What we're going to go through today is largely based on personal experience in having worked in and around small business. So please do stop me at any time if you've got any questions that relate specifically to your business. I'd be more than happy to answer those. Use the chat functionality if you can, otherwise the Q&A functionality as we go to ask those questions, but also keep in mind I'll stay on at the end of the session for a few minutes to answer any questions that you might have as well. All right, so what we're going to cover today, well, firstly, today we're going to look at the suggestion that customer service is a single interaction, whereas customer experience incorporates the entire customer journey. So we're going to look at the customer journey itself and understanding the whole customer experience process, the dimensions of customer service, first impressions. We'll talk about handling complaints effectively, and upselling is some of those strategies to really improve the customer experience as well. We're then going to talk about social media and that critical link between each customer interaction and that social media space. So that will sort of bring it all together. Now, throughout the webinar, you will discover how important customer interactions are for your online presence, which is what the critical link is. And we'll talk a little bit about what you can do to generate that positive word of mouth from each and every customer as well. Okay, so customer service is, in my opinion, a single touch point that happens with a business at the moment that customer is in front of you or transacting with you, essentially. It does impact feelings and emotion. And when you look at the customer experience, that is more than just that single touch point. It encompasses, the entire customer journey. So customer experience is really defined by the interactions and experiences that your customer is going to have with your business at various points in time, not just that over-the-counter type transaction. Now, that can really start at the first point of contact, which, as we know nowadays, is really online a lot of the time, right through to then becoming a happy and a loyal customer as well. So your job's to understand that whole experience process and then learn that critical link between each and every customer interaction. And for the purpose of the session today, specifically looking at how social media fits into the customer experience. So rather than customer service sitting alone, your job is really going to be customer experience management. So we will have a look at that customer journey shortly, but just keep in mind that customer experience has to be a top priority for businesses, but in particular small businesses. And there's a lot of stats and research that shows that companies that focus on customer experience reduce that turnover of customers and increase their revenues. And that generally leads to higher profits, which is the ultimate goal for small business. Now, in my opinion, successful customer experience management does require a bit of a 360-degree view of your customers with as much data as you can get on them, and integrated data between your own information and what other information may be available to you, so that you can fully understand them. You can create a customer journey map. And as I mentioned, I'll show you a little example of that shortly. And develop an emotional connection with your customer and allow them to develop an emotional connection with your brand or your business. And also to capture their feedback and to track their satisfaction so that you can continually update and change things as and when is needed. Now, a social media strategy as part of your customer service model will greatly help, and that'll give you that chance to communicate with your customers at a level that makes sure that they're part of your story and that they are giving you feedback and encouraged to give feedback, but also encouraged to recommend your brand to others and generate that positive word of mouth. Now, 1 in 3 customers are said to leave a brand that they love, even if they've had just one bad experience, or after one bad experience, I should say. So if you're getting continually higher rates in terms of experience, then people will stay loyal for a lot longer, and they'll actually spend more as well, which all helps. Now, having a look at that customer journey, it may vary from business to business, depending on the nature of your business. But this, what you see on the screen, will give you an idea of how it may look. Now, you can see that this kind of goes through the processes from awareness right through to advocacy, and then there's elements either side of that by way of touch points and advertising and communication elements. Now, to map this journey out for your business, you really have to think about and visualize each and every touch point that you're going to have with your future and with your current clients, and really think about each step, starting with that initial step of when the customer discovers your product or service, keeping in mind they may not have a personal interaction with you at that point. It could be an online interaction, and it could just purely be based on the homepage of your website, for example. And then right through to actually purchasing and using your product or service. Now, if you do an exercise like that, it helps you kind of step out of a business owner sort of mindset and into your customer's shoes and see the business from the customer's perspective. So essentially, you should map that journey before you design the customer experience, in my opinion. So know what their journey is and then know what they're going to get at each and every stage of that. Now, on this diagram, you can see the online interactions at the top and then the more traditional offline interactions at the bottom. You don't have to map yours out like that. That's just an example. Now, and also on this example, you see social media sitting right at the end in that advocacy phase. And that's true. It very much does come into play at that advocacy phase. But when you start to think about online ads in the social media space, word of mouth via social media, people actually looking and asking for recommendations via social media, it actually pops up a lot more than once and a lot earlier in that customer journey as well. So for the journey itself, it typically starts with awareness and consideration, so being the first two stages of the customer journey. And being the early part of the journey, they're absolutely crucial to add people into that sales funnel to make sure that they do come down and go the further steps. Customers will read reviews and testimonials, and they'll compare their experience with what their, the information gathering experience with you to that of other companies. So here they might have some questions about your product or service. If you can offer a really quick response time, that will leave quite a lasting positive first impression, or potentially address a question so that they can move forward onto the next stage. So if you think about a customer who's perhaps just found out about your product, maybe they just saw an ad, it looks like your product's going to meet their needs and solve a problem that they may have, but they've got a question about a particular feature. They're going to need a quick response at that point before they can move forward with your business or before they choose someone else's. Now, the next stage of the customer journey is conversion or purchase. That's seen there in the red. Now, that part of the journey is crucial because it really deepens the customer relationship with your business. That's also where leads or potential customers decide that your products are, in fact, sort of the best fit for their needs. So then they want to buy something, or they do buy something. So the quicker that you can get people to that point with fewer barriers, the better. Now, in small business, this is where I see that awareness and consideration can be done very well, but the purchasing and getting them to that point can be a little bit clunky. And that could be your systems and your IT or your website, or it could be your internal processes that make it a little bit difficult, and there's easier options out there. So keep that in mind. The quicker you can get people to that purchase point with fewer barriers, so look at what barriers there might be, remove them, and then you should have a better result. Then you've got retention. Now, it's not enough to spend your marketing time and energy getting new customers and then just leaving them to sort of fend for themselves once they've transacted or bought something or never hearing from you again. You have to engage with them to keep them coming back. If your customers don't hear from you or stop hearing from you, or if you stop helping them get value from your product through any stage of this life cycle, then you do risk making the life cycle a lot shorter. Now, if you can experience high retention or have high retention within your business and within your customer base, that then helps to drive further new customers or customer acquisition. And that's done through word of mouth, through referral programs. You might have incentives in place to share experiences with friends and family and that kind of thing. But to get customers to share about you, you have to engage with them and remind them of the value that you offer and the increased benefits that they can get by sharing their experience with other people. Then the last phase here that you see in terms of the customer journey is advocacy. Now that comes with satisfied customers, essentially. 83% of satisfied customers say that they're willing to share or refer to their network of friends and family, obviously, if they're satisfied. So your goal is to make sure that each and every customer is an advocate for your business and is sharing their positive experience. Now, there's a large component of that sits in the social media space, of course, but you've got to remind people that that's what you want them to do, that's what they need to do, and you have to incentivize them for doing so. The other thing to keep in mind is that customer expectations are on the rise. They're going to continue to grow, and that really does force companies and particularly small businesses to reinvent themselves and look at what the products and services are that they're offering, and that's just really to stay competitive or even sometimes to survive. There's so much availability of lots of different products and services and different brands. There's all kinds of offers. And then there's the presence of online platforms and, in particular, social media, which gives so much control over to the customer in decision making. So you really have to continue to grow and develop yourself. So do keep that in mind. And that sort of becomes apparent when we talk about customer needs and expectations. You have to, look at the customer journey, but really understand your customers before you look at their journey, because that will kind of give you some of the answers to that. Not all customers are the same. They won't need or expect the same things when they're purchasing or using products and services. Everyone has different needs and expectations because they fall into a range of different categories. They can differ through their age, through their social background, through their economic background, their cultural background, perhaps special interests, or even physical or mental abilities may differ. So to successfully meet their needs and expectations, you have to get to know them. You have to know your audience intimately and have that clear picture of exactly who they are. Now that goes beyond basic demographics like age, gender, and location. You have to have a clearer picture of your target market. And really identify who your ideal customers are. And I guess be open to the fact that your ideal customers may not be who you thought they were or who is coming through your door at the moment. And that's a conversation that I quite often have with small businesses is who's your target market? And they sort of describe the average customer that comes through their door. Now, just because that's the market that you've had in the past doesn't mean that they're the right market for you to advertise to. To find out who your target market is, that does require a bit of research. So internal research and external research. Internally, you have to determine what sort of clients you currently have, what sort of traits they have that lead to repeat purchases and that kind of thing. What of your market segments that you currently get through the door tend to become long-term and loyal customers or even spend more. So do your research internally. And then have a look at some external research, look at what the market's doing, look at what consumer behavior trends there are. There's lots of different research data available, and that really depends on your industry and the nature of your business or your products and services, but have a look at some external research around behavior as well. Then once you've identified who your most valuable audience is and what they're looking for, it should be your goal to continuously find new ways to better meet their needs. So keep in mind, you should never, ever expect your target market or your audience to change their expectations to fit your product. You're always going to be developing your product or service to suit the newly identified or changing needs of your customer base. Now, I would also say that you should develop a customer-centric culture within your business and really encourage employees to keep your customers at the centre of each and every decision that they make. We'll expand on customer service shortly, but I think, first and foremost, you have to set clear standards for your team. Your support team will have a major impact on whether or not your company is meeting customer expectations. I say support team or sales team. So that means hiring and training people that fit that excellent sort of benchmark. And then collect feedback regularly. Social media makes it very easy, and we will talk about that soon, but other online reviews, you can collect feedback yourself internally as well. But I would also suggest scoping out your competitors and know what they're doing, and particularly, new ways that they're looking at meeting and exceeding the needs of customers that may be alike. So customers that are similar to yours. Okay, so having a look at customer service really is at the core of meeting and exceeding the needs of your target market. There's 3 dimensions of customer service, and they do all interlink. So you've got human, you've got hidden, and you've got business dimensions. So human dimensions, this is body language, attitudes, how motivated your staff are, or in some cases how unmotivated they are, or how they're not motivated perhaps. You've got the business dimensions. Now this could be your processes and procedures. It could be your actual product, making sure that that's up to scratch. It could be your staff knowledge of specific functions of your business, of your product and your service, or the delivery of your product as well. Now, then you've got hidden dimensions. Hidden dimensions are the underlying things in a business. So what's going on behind the scenes that could be impacting customer service. It could be business policies. There could be technical issues that affect processes. There could be pressure on staff because of limited staff resources, differing levels of empowerment of staff, or how their working relationships are behind the scenes. There's also the case of staff bringing home problems to work that can really impact the customer service, and it can be a hidden dimension. So your clients may know nothing about what's going on, but it's really impacting the level of customer service that they're getting. But you also have to keep in mind that customers do have hidden dimensions that impact how they receive your product or service and how they interact with your staff. So think about what has happened in their day that has made them difficult to please. And, sometimes your staff can be doing absolutely everything right, but there's someone that just can't be satisfied. And so making sure that your staff are aware that customers too have hidden dimensions, and perhaps taking that into account throughout the customer service process as well. Now, these 3 dimensions of customer service are great to know for both frontline staff, business owners, alike, and research says that if you align the 3 dimensions, it will equate to excellent customer service. So being aware and having a look at what you can do in all 3 dimensions does equate to a higher level of customer service. Now, good customer service is absolutely critical to the success of all businesses, no matter how big or small, and it really does make the difference and elevate you above your competition. It makes you stand out. You can be offering the exact same product or service to a customer, and the customer service can be the differentiating factor. So do make sure that you and your staff always use that mantra of under promising and over delivering. It will really improve your customer retention rate. Remember, if customers are frustrated with the service they receive, they will rate their service poorly, and they will go on to social media and other online review sites to do so. So there's things like Google reviews, there's Yelp, there's Zomato, there's TripAdvisor, there's obviously your own social media. So really have a look at your reviews and see what people are saying about you now. Now, keep in mind, you might think that you're not on some of these channels, but people can set up an account or a profile for you. So it is really important to be aware that people can be leaving reviews without you knowing. I mean, the best practice in terms of reviews is to make sure that you are taking control of those review sites, and that you are getting alerts as soon as someone leaves a review. That's absolutely crucial. But a bit of an audit, perhaps every month, Googling your own name doesn't hurt either. So really have a look at what reviews might be on there for you. So in terms of good customer service, as I mentioned, under promise and over deliver, and keep in touch with what people are saying. So in terms of how can you improve customer service to make sure that you have that good retention rate and then ultimately have brand advocates, there's a few key areas that we're going to go over, but we'll start with first impressions. Now, the customer journey really does start with this area, with first impressions. It's absolutely crucial that you get it right, because each and every person interacts with the business for the same reason, and that's to solve a need or a want, and they want to feel good while they're doing it. Now, first impressions in a physical sense are made within the first 3 to 7 seconds of that initial meeting. go online, and that reduces down to a second, sometimes less than a second, up to 2 seconds at an absolute maximum. So, thinking about what forms your first impression. In a physical sense, it's a range of things, but online it could just be the first thing that's seen on your social media or the homepage of your website. So you really have a limited moment in time to capture these people and get them to feel comfortable enough, to feel good, to think that you will be able to solve their need or want. So I would encourage you, as a very first step from a first impression perspective, just have a look at the homepage of your website, or do a quick Google of your name and see what kind of things come up to that potentially leave that first impression. Now, in a physical sense, what forms that first impression? Well, of course, the environment or the venue, the presentation of that. Now, that could include smell, it could include temperature, music, atmosphere. You have to keep it consistent with the brand that you're trying to create. Your own personal image or your staff's personal image is really important, and it has to be consistent with who your target market are as well. So you might have a very corporate target market, and therefore your staff and your personal image has to be at that level. Whereas, in certain other environments, there's certain brands that the staff all dress extremely casually, perhaps no uniforms, perhaps, crazy uniforms, whatever that might be, but it has to suit your target market. So again, it has to be consistent with that target market, and through research you will have determined who they are, what their needs and wants and behaviours are. Your local language is also important, and whether or not you use slang or how you speak has to be relevant to your target market as well. Your body language, whether you're smiling or not smiling. There is a really good acknowledgement rule. I think acknowledgement in all customer service areas is really important, but there's a bit of a 15 and 10 rule that Disney have that I think is a great concept. But basically at Disney, if a customer is within 15 feet or 4.5 meters of a staff member, that staff member has to acknowledge the customer with a smile. Eye contact, obviously, and a smile. But if the customer then comes within 10 feet, so about 3.5 meters, they have to smile and verbally acknowledge the customer as well. So with something like along the lines of, hello, can I help you? Or I'll be with you in just a second. Or how are you today? Some kind of verbal acknowledgement as well. That acknowledgement is designed to make someone feel good. It will create a lasting first impression. It may be something, it may be a scenario where you're talking about something that's quite generic, whether or not you're complimenting them or talking about the weather, their children, whatever that might be, but that acknowledgement should genuinely make the person feel acknowledged, as the word suggests. Showing attitude and empathy is really important, or the attitude that staff members show to customers is really important as well. I think, we've all had those bad customer service experience where you think, oh God, something's up there. So really do keep that in mind, that the attitude that your staff is displaying, and going back to those hidden dimensions, is something frustrating them at work and therefore they do have a bad attitude. Those kind of things can be really damaging to a business. So keep that in mind. Okay, so then we're going to have a look at complaint handling. In terms of complaints, I think almost everybody that has to deal with customer service on any level will have complaints that they have to process at some point in their career. Now, it could be something as simple as, you've got an order slightly wrong, or there could be a major business error, but how you handle that complaint makes a major difference. I think there's an acronym, a LEARN acronym, as you see on the screen, and I think it's a great format to follow. It starts with listen, and I think if you're following these steps, and we'll go through them one by one, but if you're following these steps, it doesn't lead to any frustration from the customer. And people do get frustrated if they're trying to make a complaint and they're not feeling like it's being addressed the right way. So this is a really simple acronym and a really simple process that you can kind of teach and get your staff to follow. So listen, first of all, listen to the customer's concern without interrupting them. Empathize and be sympathetic wherever possible, or be sympathetic to the situation. When we say empathize, to say that you're understanding, that you're listening, those kind of things are really important. An apology can go a long way where it's appropriate. Now, sometimes it is an internal thing with a customer. They've got some hidden dimensions and they're just not able to receive your product or service the right way. In that instance, you might be apologizing that the customer feels that way. So you're not apologizing for having done something wrong as such, but I'm so sorry you feel like that. What can we do to rectify this situation? And that sort of leads into the reaction. Now, the react component is where you evaluate different solutions. Try to have a look at different areas or different ways that this problem can be solved. The last element is to notify or to follow up. So after you've offered and provided a solution, to personally check with the client, the customer, to make sure that they're satisfied. If at that point they go, well, no, I'm not actually, then you might have to start this process again. So that's really, really important. You can turn a complaint around. If you follow this, this process, you can turn that complaint around very, very quickly. And that quite often leads to a lot of positive feedback in that online space. Whereas you can turn it really bad, even 10 times worse, if you follow this and forget that last element of following up or notifying, personally checking with the guest, because they could be twice as frustrated because what you offered them hasn't worked. It's kind of infuriated them more. So really consider all elements of that process. But there are the reasons, that I see small businesses not handle complaints overly well. Most of the time it's to do with being too busy. So you've got too much going on. Sometimes it's too busy that's leading to delays for the customer. Sometimes it's too busy, things get missed. Sometimes it's too busy to handle a complaint well and listen to the person. Being defensive, and again, I see this all the time in small business because we're passionate. We take it very, very personally. We're very emotionally connected to our small businesses. But sometimes that defensiveness can be something as simple as just trying too quickly to come up with a solution. Sometimes staff are intimidated by a lack of training. They haven't had adequate customer service training or complaint handling training, so they just don't know what to actually say, at what point, what level of empowerment they have, when can they offer a solution, or when should they escalate that problem to a supervisor, to a manager, or to yourself as a business owner. And that sort of ties into that last point, which is a lack of procedures or a procedural breakdown. Do you have proper customer service and complaint handling procedures in place? So like I said, complaints can really be turned around to be huge positives, and quite often it's the worst of complaints that are turned around so well that they've generated such positive word of mouth that we see online. So make sure that each and every complaint that does come across your desk, or that that you're faced with, you've got that opportunity to turn it around into a very positive story. Now, another way to really improve customer service, but to also improve your revenues, is suggestive selling. Suggestive selling is a sales technique where the employee asks the customer if they'd like to include an additional purchase or recommends a product that might suit the client. Now, suggestive selling is, ideally it's used to increase the purchase amount of the client, which increases your revenues of the business. But it really does help customer service because people do feel like you stopped to take a bit of time to learn a little something about them, to know what to suggest to them. So that's really the huge win in that, along with the benefit of obviously increased sales and revenues. So how do you do it? Well, you incorporate a feature and a benefit. A feature is something about the product or service, and then the benefit is what it means for the actual customer. So think about what you can offer that links the two. So what's in it for the customer? Now, sometimes you find a lot out about the customer in the greeting, or what you see in front of you as well. Think about, by analysing the situation with what you see, what the customer is telling you about, that little bit of interaction that you've had, what feature can you give them based on what you know about them? Now, how you find out what they want? Well, obviously the greeting, as I mentioned. What's the occasion? What do you, how can I help you? Or how's your day been? Something simple as that can really help. An open-ended question is really designed to get that full and meaningful answer using sometimes your own knowledge or feelings, and incorporating that into a bit of conversation. So you want to avoid that dreaded no word. An open-ended question is the very opposite of a closed-ended question. You don't want that single word response. So it's really important that you do ask questions the right way. You have to know your products and services and your full range of products and services as well. So that's why I've got on the screen, I've put know your products and your menus. So what's the full product range that you have on offer? And what do you typically know about behavior within your own business? If someone buys product X, they're likely to also want product Y, for example. So keep that in mind, really understand your own products. Now, I see this in a hospitality environment quite often, where my partner's got a bit of a habit for doing it, asking what would you recommend out of the two dishes? And I really enjoy it when he asks this question, because the responses are quite interesting. Some people say, I don't know, I've never tried either of them. That's not helpful from a customer's perspective. Some will be honest and say, look, I've tried this one and it's absolutely amazing, but I haven't tried the other one yet. Some people will say, well, I haven't tried either of them, but this one is really popular and we get great feedback about it. So you've really got this opportunity to be creative here rather than just saying, don't know, sorry. So those kind of things are really important as well. And sharing of your own experiences is great. So keep in mind, suggestive selling truly does improve customer service, but that in turn leads to a more positive experience, which is highly likely to translate into higher retention and stronger advocacy, all of which is going to go into that online space, or the majority of which will go into the online space. The major positive is that suggestive selling can really increase revenues as well. So absolutely focus on suggestive selling with your team if you're not already. Okay, so now thinking about how this customer journey fits in with and relates to the social media space. Well, I've given you a little bit of information as we've been going and how it all sort of ties in, but let's just have a look first before we go any further at what social media is. Social media, most people kind of have used it, know what it is, but essentially it's any website or application that enables users to create and share content, or even to participate in social networking. So it's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, there's tons of social sharing sites. Social media is not just a messaging and an acquisition channel for businesses. It also does greatly impact your SEO. Social media sends signals to search engines like Google, and I'll expand more on that in a minute. But it really is about that engagement with the customers and allowing customers to engage with one another. The reason it's so important is essentially 88% of people, as a statistic, are influenced by reviews and online comments. So that's a huge percentage of people that are actually influenced by what they read and see online, whether that be from friends, family, or people that they've never met before that are across the globe. Now, social pressure can really tarnish your branding and tarnish your reputation as quickly as you're trying to grow it. Fingertips are always on the move, and it could be people waiting in a line and disgruntled about service, a particular service. They could let their friends know on Facebook, or they can pop a review if they've enjoyed a particular experience or an interaction with a product or service or a brand. Social media has and does play this key role in a power shift to customers. So the world is so immensely connected since the introduction of social media. If you've had a bad experience, there's all the review sites. If you want to praise someone, you can leave reviews, comments, you can share, you can, all kinds of things happen in that social media space. And that's right down to product reviews by way of videos. And, it's absolutely huge. The risks of social media can greatly affect your reputation, but the positives are huge as well. Now, there are, as I mentioned, there are positive impacts that social media has, and it can really positively impact your customer service. So your job is really to have a look at how and where those social interactions fit into your customer journey. Make sure that you're maximizing your efforts in that space and that you really are a part of any conversation going on and that you're listening to the feedback from your customers. So some tips for that are, first of all, to reap the benefits of two-way brand engagement. Customers absolutely love when businesses share information, and realistically, you know, the stuff that does the best is tips, ideas, sometimes a bit of banter, a bit of humor across social media sites. Customers love to send a message to their favorite brands over social channels and really do get a bit of a kick out of that response that they get from a brand. So that two-way engagement is really important. And it's a great way to build brand loyalty and help give your company its own persona and its own voice. Also consider social media as an extension of your contact information. It is another contact point. Customers expect a response to comments, questions, concerns within hours, some minutes, hours, I would say, not days. Because social media allows your customers to really effortlessly reach out to you without getting stuck on hold or waiting for an email, they do use it in that way. They don't want to go through a lot of hassle. They don't want to find your phone number, give you a call, wait online, those kind of things. So you have to be responsive in that regard as well. You have to have these accounts monitored so that you are answering questions. Now, one thing I really see here is when an organisation posts, now you might schedule posts weeks in advance, days in advance, and they go out at set times, but it's really important that you're there when those things are going live so that as comments are being made and as that post is getting traction and interaction, you're part of that conversation. It's absolutely crucial that you are, otherwise it's a wasted effort. You can quickly address complaints on social media, and you absolutely should nip complaints in the bud very quickly and easily. So if you avoid social media, it's not going to stop customers from speaking up if they have some kind of complaint. If you've got a presence on social channels, at least you're going to know about these issues and address them really promptly and get ahead of a situation. You should be responding to any complaints pretty much immediately, because if you're not there to do it, your competitors might pick up the slack, or other customers will get on and have their say as well. Now, you can see that this snowballs very, very quickly in the case of any negative. I've seen it negative feedback quite frequently, really snowballing and getting out of control very, very fast. So keep that in mind. You will obviously have your phone number or email address listed on your social media channels. That could be, you know, a quick way to get people to get through to you and take things offline, but you have to be there to address things online as well. You can use social media, and it's very positive in the sense of spotting trends. You might spot them on or before they occur. You can keep your ear to the ground and pay really close attention to what customers are talking about to spot these trends. There's lots of analytics, and you know there's information that you can kind of go through, but you can just monitor your competitors' pages, monitor obviously hashtags, and get a head start on providing customers what they want. So as you start seeing your trend emerge, you may have to then adapt a product or service to suit what this trend is, or communicate that it's something that you've got on offer as well. Now, the other huge advantage and huge positive of social media in the customer service space is that it gives you this additional access point to your customers. Social media channels shouldn't always be considered, or shouldn't be frequently considered by you as an advertising opportunity. It's not the right medium for just constant sales campaigns. Obviously, you can share the odd offer or deal, and there is advertising, dedicated advertising in the Facebook and Instagram space and other social media spaces, but just make sure organically it doesn't represent the majority of your posts. There's an 80-20 rule. So 80% of the post should be the information, tips, hints, and you know that kind of content that customers actually enjoy reading, and then 20% might be about sales and offers and about you essentially. So keep that in mind. Now, if you want to increase your sales in the long term through various social media channels or social media activities, you have to be prepared to use that channel for customer service as well. It has to be you have to be part of a conversation because it's not a sales channel. It is a communication channel, and a two-way communication channel. So certainly give it the time and attention that it needs. But in terms of, and we'll sort of touch on this in a bit, but you really have to choose the social media channel where your clients are. So knowing your target market so that you can focus your efforts. Now, I did touch on this earlier, but social media can really positively impact your search engine optimization, or SEO, as well. So social media interactions affect what your customer and what you see, but it does affect how well you come up in searches. Now, because so much sharing takes place on these major social media platforms, social signals are important to SEO. And signals refer to a web page's collective shares, likes, and their overall social media visibility as perceived by search engines. So those individual activities contribute to your organic search ranking and are seen as another form of citation or authority. It's similar to backlinks. So if you've got a strategy that's designed to increase social media engagement, obviously you're going to get the rewards of that in a social media space and that customer interaction, but it's also going to really help your website's search engine ranking. So for businesses that are focused on SEO, obviously consider and continue your social media strategy as well, in addition to any of your usual SEO tactics as well, of course. Now, in terms of increasing those social signals, first and foremost, strong content is key. Now, I did touch on this, but valuable, entertaining, or informative content always gets a more positive interaction than any blatant spammy advertising. Now, if you do want to increase your social signals and try and get more interaction in that social media space, there's a few things that I would recommend. First of all, to post regularly. Keep your brand at the top of those social media news feeds and more opportunity for interaction, of course. However, in saying that, absolutely go for quality, not quantity. Engagement is what you're after. It's absolutely crucial that you do get that engagement. Otherwise, it can have a detrimental impact. So I often get asked the question, how often should I be posting? Is it 3 times a week? Is it 3 times a day? Now, I would say that you should post based on the content that you've got available. If you don't have the right content available, there's no point posting something just because you've told yourself you need to post 3 times a day. Whenever you're posting content on social media, obviously images and video will really greatly increase interaction rates across all social media types, but video, reels, those kind of things are becoming more and more popular, and static images less so. So really consider that video space as well. I would say listen and respond to feedback. So hear what people are saying about your brand. Respond to critique in a constructive and a positive way. There's nothing worse than seeing defensive responses on social media, or what's worse than a defensive response is no response at all. So definitely respond to positive and negative feedback. Monitor your shares, your mentions, hashtags, likes. Monitor keywords that are associated with your brand as well, so that you know what's being said about you and about your brand outside of your own social media channels. True. And my last point in terms of increasing social signals is to cover all social media bases. But when I say all social platforms or all social media bases that are relevant to your target market. So produce content for the top social media sites that are relevant to you. You don't want to be on social media channels where your target market is not. So let's say TikTok is a really good example. There's a lot of hype and a lot of popularity in TikTok, and the number of users of TikTok is absolutely skyrocketed, and some businesses will think that they need to be on it just because it is going through the roof. But are your target market on TikTok? So really consider that. There's no point getting involved in creating videos, creating content for a platform where your target market are not present. So really focus your efforts. And as small businesses, we tend to be limited on time and resources. So really narrow down those efforts and focus on what is going to represent the best return on investment by way of time for you. Now, in order to be active on channels and encourage engagement, you have to support social media in your business as well. Now, there's ways that you can do that. Firstly, and I've got the 3 elements to engaging with your customers on social media on the screen in a particular order, but it is a cycle. So you have to listen. So you have to listen to your customers online and offline. Online, you can use tools for social monitoring that track mentions, competitors, hashtags, events, that kind of thing. You can spend time on social media channels yourself. You can use other monitoring tools, web monitoring tools, brand and reputation tools. All of this data, I would say, should be imported into your own reporting so that you can actively track what's going on and compare your results month on month. But you want to listen to what people are saying. Don't just monitor what people are saying. Really think about why they're saying what they're saying as well. The next element is talking to people. Talk offline, in person, talk online with pictures, with media releases, and engaging with influencers, being part of things like blogs or video communities or other social networks. So really answer messages as well, answer comments, respond, be extremely responsive in that space. And the third element, like I said, this is in no particular order, but the third element is to support people, support your customers, direct people to channels where they can talk to you. So provide all of the links to your social media channels. If you've got a premises, think about if you can offer things like Wi-Fi connectivity or what signage you can put up there to say to people, use these hashtags, engage with us on these social media platforms, so advertise them, communicate them verbally. Encourage people to engage with you offline and online, which will give you content. It'll give you content, to listen to and the ability to talk back to them. So that's why it's a bit of a cycle. First, you might start supporting them and really encouraging them to get online. Then they'll get online and post stuff. You can listen and talk back. Or it might start with listening and then you talk back to them and then you see them face to face. So it's really, really important that you consider all 3 elements within your business. So going back to the customer journey, social media is an absolutely essential part of this journey. It really does allow you to improve your customer service. It allows you to engage with customers. It allows you also to provide real-time responses to any questions that your customers might have. Now, through listening, through talking and supporting in that social media space, I believe that you really enhance that advocacy component of the customer journey, but also really enhance brand awareness, which will mean you become visible when your customers begin their journey as well. Now, a lot of businesses focus their efforts on these first 3 stages of the journey. So getting people in the door and buying, basically. But I think that can be an absolutely massive missed opportunity because the last 2 stages, that loyalty and advocacy, will bring you the most high value customers. And in a lot of cases, those customers will actually send even more customers your way. So it costs something like 8 times more to attract a new customer than it does to keep an existing customer. So that retention and advocacy phase it should be a major, major priority. And that's where social media, but also obviously your customer service comes into it. So have a look at that and try and map out a customer journey for yourself as well. Okay, so that was the end of our customer service effects on social media session. I do hope that it all makes sense to you, and I hope there's some things that you can take out of this to improve or at the very least better understand that connection between what happens face-to-face with your customers and what happens online. Now, I will stay online now and answer any questions that you have, but keep in mind we've just scratched the surface. So if you want to know more or if you want to talk about any other aspects of your business, you can always book an appointment through one of our advisors. Now, we have advisors in Queensland, WA and NT. And as part of the Commonwealth Government's Digital Solutions Program, you can have up to 3 one-on-one sessions with an advisor, plus get access to a range of workshops and webinars for a heavily subsidised rate of just $44. So if you're not part of that already, I'd very much encourage you to sign up. There is a little bit of eligibility around that. As I mentioned, we cover WA, Queensland and NT, so you have to have an ABN registered in one of those states. You have to be operating for profit, and you have to employ fewer than 20 full-time staff. So thanks again for joining me today. Good luck with your customer service and with your social media. If you've got any questions, pop them through now, and please do reach out and join the program if you haven't already. Thanks.